Hello again. In this video, we're going to talk about the agents of socialization. So you've heard me refer to the agents of socialization in previous video lessons. Certainly you're reading about them in chapter 3, and this will not be the only time you will need to know about and identify and point out the importance of the different agents of socialization. So let's first get a general idea of what it is that we are talking about when sociologists refer to the agents of socialization. And you'll have to take some notes, as usual in all of the videos. You'll have to take some notes from the commentary that we share. Instead of just merely the stuff on the board behind me, you'll be missing out if that's the only stuff that you write down. So first, let me say that the agents of socialization, these are not badge-carrying agents with ID cards or anything like that. The agents of socialization are simply the people and the things and the life experiences, the places that we go, the places that we see through the media, these things that create life experience for us. They create social interaction opportunities because it's through life experience and social interaction opportunities that learning happens. So it's the people, places, things, ideas, etc. that create social interaction opportunities for us and therefore learning. Because we learn through the interactions that we have on a daily basis, whether they are informal, unorganized, just regular old daily pattern kind of interactions, or whether it's a formal situation like you and I are doing right now, where you're supposed to be taking notes on this. You're supposed to be stopping me, rewinding, if that's a word that you use for digital videos. I don't think so. Backing me up and listening again, catching something that you need to put in your notes, taking quizzes on it. Like, this is a formal learning process that we're going through right now. But think about all of the people and the life experiences, the things that you've had social interaction with and about in your life. Every single time that occurred, a learning process was going on in your beautiful brain, and those are the agents of socialization, those things that cause you to undergo the socialization process. There's lots of examples of agents of socialization. Some of them are going to sound similar to the list of social institutions that you have in your notes from week 2, I think it was. You have a list of social institutions which exist on the macro scale as part of our social structure. The agents of socialization list is very similar to that. You might want to compare this list that we're about to make with that list you have in your notes from previous weeks. Agents of socialization include an individual's family members. Now, I'm not going to say family with a capital F in quotes, like a macro scale social pattern of the family. I'm going to say family like the individual's family members. Who were you born into? What caregivers did you have? Who adopted you? Who was your guardian when you were in your formative years? And now as an adult, who are the people in that family structure that you live with and interact with the most often on a daily basis? These are the people, the individuals on the micro scale who make up the family with a lowercase f that should be listed as number 1 example for the agents of socialization. Now, sociologists don't agree on much. We usually have very different points of view and have a very different take on a lot of things. That's the beauty of sociology. We get to have our own point of view and have intellectual, polite conversations, agreements, and disagreements about a lot of stuff. But one thing that most all of us agree on is that family, with the lowercase f, that's the most important agent of socialization. And primarily the reason it is because they teach us the most fundamental parts of our behavior. They teach us our communication pattern so that we understand how to not only take in messages and interpret signals and symbols that we see in our surroundings, but also how to communicate with others in an effective way. So the family is seen as the most important agent of socialization. Now, what sociologists will not say is we will not say who should compose the ideal family from one society to the next. We just say that the people who have a hold of us for those formative years and teach us those foundational interactive things so that we can get by in our society as adults, those are the most important individuals in our lives. We call them our family. Number 2 on the list, and not necessarily because it's the second most important agent of socialization, but number 2 on a lot of lists is the mass media. Now, we say mass media today, it includes things like X and Instagram and any of the other kinds of social networks, the Discord server that you're a part of. All of those kinds of things would be included in mass media, social media stuff. But mass media originally, like way back before I had any gray hair and I was learning this stuff, mass media meant like the TV stations, the major news outlets and newspapers and magazines, where messages could get out to the general public very, very quickly, important, vital messages that were necessary for either your safety or a public service announcement or something like this. Those kinds of things, in addition to entertainment, is what the mass media was for. And so think about the mass media as a major method for messages from outside that family unit to get to that family unit and to affect the way that family unit interacts with each other and the plans that they take and the strategies that they have for their daily life. And so mass media can greatly affect our individual behavior. And even when it's not some kind of public service announcement or important announcement from the government, so-and-so escaped from prison, be on the lookout, or a water main broke, you have a boil order, or something like this. Those kinds of messages can come to us through the mass media, and that's one of the purposes of the mass media. But also entertainment. I mean, how many times do we include shows, even if it's just individual videos from some YouTube creator like you're watching right now? How much of the outside world do we let in through media sources? And so any of those, even if you're sitting alone in your room and you're watching a video about imaginary things like unicorns and dinosaurs, or what, not dinosaurs aren't imaginary, but extinct, right? Any kind of thing that doesn't actually exist in our reality, you're still having a social experience with that. You're still having interaction with the ideas and the notions and the behaviors, and we can take on, and we do take on aspects of our behavior, the way that we think and feel and act and react and all of those kinds of things, that's part of what we learn in our daily socialization process, hourly, minute by minute socialization process. Okay, another item, another list, number 3 on the agents of socialization should be school. Now listen to the difference here that I'm making. I want to point out specifically that when we talked about the social institutions and that list that you have from, I think it was somewhere around week 2, the social institutions list had the education system on that list, because the education system is a macro scale part of the social structure that we call social institution. It affects everybody. There's patterns and trends that affect everybody across the United States in the education system. But you and I as individuals, we go to individual schools. We go to individual classrooms. We have social settings centered around our classmates, our teachers, maybe administrators. That's where social interaction takes place. So even though the school is organized around formal processes of what you are supposed to learn based on your age group in our society, we also learn a ton of other things, like how rules apply to us or how to get along with others who are not our siblings. This kind of thing is something that we're exposed to. Maybe you're an only child with no siblings, but you need to know what sharing means, for instance. You're not going to be able to learn that inside your household. You're going to learn that in daycare. You're going to learn that in pre-K. You're going to learn that in an educational setting. Daycare classrooms, pre-K, K, first grade, etc. These are the schoolhouse kind of settings that are specific to Number 3 on our list of agents of socialization, we simply say school. Please make sure that you start to differentiate in your mind when we're talking about things like education system. You should hear macro scale. Even though we say education system, you should know immediately we're talking about social structure stuff. When we say school, you should know immediately that I could be talking about your Otter Creek Elementary School, or I could be talking about room 230 at the Little Rock South campus site. We could be talking about that particular social experience on the very, very micro scale that creates life experiences for us and therefore learning, whether it's formal or informal. There's a ton of formal and informal learning that goes on for us every single day. Peers, that's number 4 on a list of agents of socialization. Your peers are going to be anybody who has equal social standing as you that you interact with on a regular basis. Peers can include your group of friends. Peers include your classmates who you simply interact with, but maybe you wouldn't necessarily call them friends, they're acquaintances. Peers include your coworkers who have the same standing in the company as you do. We are in class together, you and I, but we are not peers because we have different social positions. I'm the teacher, you're the student, so we are interacting, but this is not a peer interaction. This is an authority kind of subordinate kind of interaction that we'll talk about more actually next week when we go into chapter 4. So there's a lot more agents of socialization that can go on the list. Church, for instance, corresponds to religion as the overarching social institution. Church would be the agent of socialization that some, but not all of us experience on a regular basis. Co-workers, some sociologists break the term peers apart into those we interact with and have acquaintanceships with in our personal life compared to those we interact with and have professional bonds with in a professional setting, co-workers, for instance. So please look at the agents of socialization list that is provided for you in chapter 3, because all of these things contribute to the life experiences that we have. And the concept of the socialization process doesn't just include, it requires that social interaction takes place or the learning process doesn't happen. We've seen that so far in our lecture where we learned about nature versus nurture and some of those terrible and horrible situations in history where we know human children were withheld from the typical expected socialization process, and therefore they couldn't participate in society. They didn't know how to function, and certainly didn't function in expected ways once we, people who rescued them, tried to bring them into human society. So, that early cognitive development that we go through, that we've also learned about in a previous lecture, that early cognitive development is so vital for us to be able to function fully as adults in society. And that's another reason why we say that the family, back to number 1 on our list of examples, the family with a lowercase f is the foundational agent of socialization that really has the greatest impact on our life outcomes in the long run. So those are the agents of socialization. Please note that I have a little bit more on the board behind me about social structure. All the elements of social structure work together to create not only a framework for the agents of socialization to be a part of our daily lives, but also string macro level parts of society to micro level parts of society, just like the agents of socialization do. So if you look at this list behind me, these are the 3 elements of social structure that we'll focus on a lot when we get to chapter 4. Social institutions exist at the macro scale and part of social structure. Statuses and roles are these concepts or norms that exist in culture that bridge the social institution on the macro scale to our interaction with the social groups that we belong to on the micro scale. And all of this we learn through the social experiences that the agents of socialization create in our lifetime. And that's what got us here today. And 30 years from now, you will have experienced so much more of life, and you will have a different set of ideas and behaviors. And some of your ideas and behaviors that you have now are going to still be firmly in place. And that's going to be largely because of the interaction and the life experiences that we share or have been created by the agents of socialization in our lives. Please text me with questions, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.